But I wanted to go back to another point because building is one piece of the puzzle. The other piece that sometimes takes up more time than anything is management and error handling. And I know you spoke a little bit, Jan, about AI error management, how we were early to the punch and started investing in there heavily. What do you see as sort of the next generation of AI, how we handle errors in the platform using AI?
Right. So as I said before, we invested at a fairly early stage in terms of using AI, way before Gen AI came on the scene, to help our customers categorize various exceptions and give them direction to act on it. And so it's no surprise that it's just a natural extension. Not only do we have agents in the product upcoming fairly soon to build your workflows based on a prompt, but also to be able to do anything and everything to manage flows running in production, to chase down some of the errors that you might encounter and ultimately go fix it. So you can converse with these agents in the product to be able to resolve some of the issues that you might be running into and reduce the burden in terms of managing these workflows. Again, we have a number of these internal agents in the product to help you do everything that the UI can do, but make it easier for you to lower the bar, to lower the technical barriers so that not so technical resources can come in and also be able to take part.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm very excited for. I mean, you can think of it almost as a personal assistant that helps you resolve errors. And I think that's going to save our users a lot of time on the operational front. But I think the next logical question when we talk about giving autonomy to all these different users throughout an organization and enabling business technologists in some cases to automate processes or parts of processes and working and collaborating with IT is, how is this all governed? Because it could be scary, and it could be a situation where you grow in complexity and create even more technical debt. So how do we make sure that there's the right governance model in place when building these automations? And I think this might apply a little bit more to you, Casey, so I'll leave you some time to answer that, and then we'll go to Jan after.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's how do we bring this into organization? And what we talk to our clients about is we really want to avoid shadow AI. And shadow AI is, hey, I'm off using a public-facing large language model with my personal account, right? And then I run the risk of data leakage or sensitive data from my organization now being retained by one of these public-facing large language models. So again, it's always kind of the way we think about it. Also from there, if we take it to the next step, it's that fluency piece, which I touched on earlier, where, what tools are we using for AI? Again, we're talking about Celigo quite a bit, but again, what are those use cases? And then helping those, first level workers on, here's how we use the tool, here's how you prompt it, developing an agent, here's kind of what we talked about earlier, like here are the rules, what the agent can and cannot do, right? So again, it's the way we think about it is kind of that first piece on avoiding, getting alignment on the tool, and then how do we use that tool effectively so we don't run the risk of somebody saying like, well, I tried it, it didn't work, so I'm off using a public facing LLM. Other things that I think about also from like a model perspective are, what models are we using? How have we just come to an alignment from a AI perspective within our organization? I think about also policies and procedures, right? Because we're working with a lot of organizations on helping them develop an AI policy. And, as we think through that, part of, your infosec policy is going to be used in there. Your data policy is going to be used in there. Your privacy policy. There's all going to be pieces because really, as we led with, this all gets back to data and how we're using it, right? So again, those are just kind of some initial things that we think about. We could probably talk for the entire webcast around like AI governance, but probably not why everybody's here. But any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, so it's good points all around. I mean, I think I heard some of the bad, like sharing personal information or sharing personal data, creating more shadow IT or shadow AI. Maybe share a little bit more about some of the concepts you've seen that like what is best practice? What does good look like
Yeah,
in terms of governance?
great question. And I think every organization is going to be different, right? Because again, I think about what's our comfort level in using this technology? What type of business are we? Um, right? We don't want to slow down the business, but again, we want to work at that right pace, the correct pace. So we're going to have a different risk profile. What are we comfortable in using? Um, I don't want to, again, I talked about that shadow AI, and again, I want alignment on a platform, or at least, specific use cases within a platform on here's how we're using. So again, identifying those use cases, because I don't want to lose visibility into what people within my organization are using. So again, just, inventorying that. There's going to be different, what I'll call risk profiles for, Jan brought this up earlier. If we have consultants doing development for us, business, IT, what data are we going to be making available to those individuals, right? So like just basic security on who has access to what data. And then how do we kind of roll this out is also another big one. It's like we take the approach of piloting use cases rather than a massive big bang approach, just because I think, with AI, this technology is so new. We've been working it for a number of years, but again, a lot of the clients that I work with, it's extremely new on like, how do I have a simple prompt with ChatGPT, for example? It's a new way of thinking of using technology. So again, as we work with our clients, we want to make sure they get the value of their investment, and it's taking small bites of the apple, so to say, rather than, because again, we'll do a pilot, we'll learn a lot, the end user will learn a lot, take those learnings, then apply them to the next use case. So again, just kind of a governed rollout approach.
Yeah, I think that'll take us really well to our next question. But Jan, I'll pause here if you have anything to add on the concept of governance and managing autonomy across teams.
Yeah, I think Casey nailed it when it comes to governance. So let me maybe talk a little bit more about control. As I said before, the hypothesis in starting Celigo was really to be a platform that can straddle that line between the business side and IT. And especially today, it's really interesting to see the backlog that IT has. And I'll just give you a quick example. So last year, Celigo decided to be an AI first company. And this was coming all the way from me. The mandate was, we need to be the best possible example of how a company can use AI to automate business processes in today's world. And I was just attending a meeting before this webcast. It was a weekly AI committee meeting that we have. And part of the discussion was, well, we've got this team internally that's managing all Celigo's automations. And part of that team is now entirely focused, or I should say, most of that team is focused on building agents to really take the business forward. And there's not enough bandwidth. And that's ultimately, that team is controlled by IT. So the reason I bring this up is, using a platform, a next-gen platform such as Celigo, you can get to a federated model. You can be centralized if you want. You can control everything through a central IT type team. You can be entirely decentralized. I don't recommend that, but certainly we have some companies doing that. But the best of both worlds is a federated model where certain business processes can be controlled by more of a central entity, and others can be empowered at a departmental level to go build some of these automations, especially with AI and everything that needs to be done. various departments and lines of business need to build their AI workflows, build agents, and they cannot necessarily wait until IT has bandwidth. So this is an evolution. It's an interesting model, and certainly I just want to say that the Celigo platform fully supports it as well.
Yeah, and that just reminded me of something that Drew, our head of sales or VP of sales for Americas, mentioned during our sales kickoff a few weeks ago, and that's that AI sits at the intersection of business and IT, line of business and IT, and so does Celigo. So it makes perfect sense that with AI, and you mentioned the agents that we're building internally, this federated model and being able to enable a federated approach is even more important for organizations.